podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Humans of Speedway. I'm Brennan, and my guest in this episode is Neil Vatcher. He spent his entire life involved in Speedway as a mechanic, team manager, and now overseeing the development of the next generation of stars. Some of the names who have come through the GB Youth system include Robert Lambert, Tom Brennan, Dan Bewley, Jordan Palin and Adam Ellis, to name just a few, all overseen by Neil. We'll find out some of the levels of dedication required to make it to the top.
I said, Drew, we've just had an email to say that you're in the World Under-21 final on Friday in Palin and Adam Ellis. Can you do it? And again, he took the opportunity, went to Birmingham that night, straight afterwards, went home, washed his bike and then drove straight to Palin and Adam Ellis.
Plus, we'll take a look at Neil's other roles. He's not just the man in charge of the stars of tomorrow. He's also the boss of the referees and in charge of the rulebook. Plus, we'll find out about Neil's dream team and much more too. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome to this episode of Humans of Speedway, Neil Vatcher.
Hello, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And it's great to be able to speak to you because your name has been mentioned so many times in previous episodes. And really, you know, a lot of the success that British Speedway is seeing now has at one point come through your hands in terms of the future talent. But again, you're one of these people who's had a lifetime in Speedway, and even now you're not just in charge of the youth, you've got roles with the SCB and you're in organising all sorts of different things. Just give us an overview of the life of Neil Vatcher in British Speedway at this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do wear a number of different hats in the Speedway world. Like I'm very fortunate, to be involved in a sport that has basically been my whole life, really, Ian. And now that's, sort of between the two roles, it takes up my whole day and whole week. But yeah, so regards to the under-21 role, since 2010, I've been called team manager of the Great Britain under-21 squad, which involves obviously the under-21s, the under-19s, and also the British youth as well, which goes down to 8-year-old lads riding 125s. And to be fair, there's an awful lot of work that goes into that, which I'm as excited doing, even this morning, to the very first day that I did it in 2010. It's an absolute passion of mine. And for me, that's probably the best part of the sport for me, is to be involved with the young British riders. And I feel that over the years, all those years ago now, back in 2010, we didn't have hardly any success at that level. We've worked really, really hard. We've tried to get riders out to Europe as much as we can to get as much experience on European tracks. And over the last sort of probably 4 years, it's paid dividends where we are now winning medals on an annual basis. And whereas back when we started, we were struggling to score any points in any events, whether that was individual or team. So the work's been worthwhile. And as I say, regards to the under-21 team, we've actually won a medal in the last 4 years, which prior to that, we hadn't won one for 11 years prior to that. So I think it's proven that the work that's coming through is working well. And I'm really proud to say that the majority of those under-21 riders, the majority of them have come from the British youth system, riding 125s and then working their way up to 250s and obviously onto 500s eventually. The likes of Tom Brennan, Drew Kemp, Leon Flint have all worked through all those levels and are now representing Great Britain on the big stage, and obviously with Tom, the Speedway of Nations as well, even at sort of senior events as well. So something that I'm very proud of. Everyone talks about the Speedway of Nations. Obviously Ty was part of that team, but ultimately the three riders that won it on the day were the last three British under-21 champions, which was obviously Robert, Dan and Tom. And again, I think it's proven that the work that we've done with them has worked well, and something that I'm very proud of to be part of it.
And it must be amazing for you to see these, what were young lads, 8, 9-year-olds now performing on the world stage and winning gold medals and all that kind of thing. But this success has been building for a long time, and this is work that goes on that people don't see. People will always cite Poland and say, Poland, 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 look at what Poland are doing, why we're not doing what Poland are doing. But actually in Poland, they're looking at Great Britain and saying, Great Britain here are getting it together, and there are envious eyes around the world in Speedway, aren't they, looking at what's going on in this country?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Poland is the ultimate team at the moment, country-wise and, league level for sure. Everyone wants to ride in Poland, but exactly what you just said, Ian, I think over the last couple of years, we have caught them up. I would say it's probably fair to say that we're not quite at that level yet, because they have won world titles in all different competitions for 9, 10, 11 years continuously. But we are catching them up, definitely. The youth system in Britain is without doubt the best youth system anywhere in the world. We have more youth riders than anyone does in any country. I'm talking about from 125s upwards. A good story of mine actually. A couple of years ago, I was in Sweden for an under 21 event, and I was staying in the hotel the previous night, the night before the meeting, and Hans Nielsen, who's their Danish team manager and obviously ultimate professional in his day, was actually staying in the same hotel, and we actually met up with him the evening before, and Hans actually asked me the secret behind the youth system here in Great Britain. And coming from someone the calibre of Hans Nielsen, from a great speedway country like Denmark, to me that was a sort of for him to ask that I was sort of a bit gobsmacked really. And again, I think it shows that not only us in the UK know what's going on, but around the world, through sort of magazines and social media, people can see that the British scene at younger level is working. And as I just said, to have those 3 young guys win the Speedway of Nations, back in October was a great achievement for everyone that's supported, like myself and the young guys over the last 9, 10, 11 years. So that's great.
We've spoken recently on this podcast to a few of your lads, particularly Jordan Palin, Jordan Jenkins, Tom Brennan. We've spoken to them all on recent episodes, and I think the feedback that's come back is how switched on they are, how grounded they are, how intelligent they are, and their knowledge of the sport is just amazing for lads of their age. How do you keep these guys grounded? Because if you're a teenager, 17, 18 years old, there's a lot going on in your life, a lot of distractions. Of course, your mates might be going off doing things that 17, 18, 19-year-olds might do without really thinking of a professional sporting career. How do you keep those feet on the ground and these guys so focused on that success in the sport?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, from a very early age, and all credit to the parents of those riders, we can probably name dozen, 15 riders that they've been very professional from a early age. As I just said earlier before as well, that we've tried to get them abroad to even at 125 events, 250 events. From a very early age, they've been going to Europe and competing against the Poles, the Latvians, the Danes, the Swedes, and I think they can see how professional those guys are, what is needed from other nations as well. And I think everyone's goal is obviously the same, to go as far as you possibly can. And I think also with the Great Britain setup now, the academies that the British team have, everyone can see that to reach the very top, you've got to be the ultimate professional, not just at the track but away from the track as well. You've got to be fit, eat the right food, get the right sleep, have the right backup team and everything. It's a whole jigsaw. That's often how I describe it. Like, to be good on the track is obviously great, of course, but that's just one part of the jigsaw that you have to put all the pieces together to reach the levels of Robert and Ty and Dan. And these guys, they do have these top riders that they can look to now, and I think everyone knows what it takes to get to that very top level. And I think perhaps the one or two that do fall aside haven't stuck to that regime of being professional with everything in life. I know it's a big ask, to almost give up your whole life to be that professional speedway rider, but it's a very short career ultimately, and if they want to achieve, then they have to be a professional in everything that they do.
Talent spotting, I suppose, is part of your job, isn't it? And you're introduced to these lads going round on speedway bikes at the age of 8 or 9 or 10, still in primary school. Can you spot a future star just by watching them do a few laps? Because I know that Phil Morris has said that, he saw Robert Lambert on a bike for the first time once and he was just different level. But is it that blatant, this inbuilt talent for being a top speedway rider is sort of something you're born with in a way?
Yeah, definitely. To be honest, it excites me a lot of the time when you see riders for the first time. To be honest, I probably had the same experience with Robert that Phil did. I can remember going to the Isle of Wight. It was midweek. It was it was pre-season. That's right. It was pre-season, and I knew that the Isle of Wight had like a training session going on there. And this was I think this was in my first season in the role, and I thought I'd just go over there like on a scouting mission, not really knowing which riders would be there. And it turned up, and my wife Jackie came with me, and we went to the track, and there was this young kid like whizzing around on this 250 bike, like not knowing who he was. And I remember saying to my wife Jackie, "Oh my God, how fast is he going around the big old Isle of Wight track?" And it turned out to be a young boy called Robert Lambert. And then another story that always sticks in my mind is when Adam Ellis, he came and competed in the British Youth Championship. I think that was in 2000 and it might have been 12, I think, or 13. And Adam, as we know, lives in France. He was sort of grown up in France and ultimately rode the big tracks over there as his apprenticeship. And he entered the British Youth Championship for the first time, and they came to Eastbourne. And anyone that's been to Eastbourne will know that it's a real small, tight track. And I remember we was like stood on the dog track and sort of looking down the back straight, so the riders were sort of like pulling away. And oh my God, Adam was so loose. He was like hairy, scary, like you wanted to probably shut your eyes, to be honest. But at that time, you could see straight away. And again, I said to Jackie, I said, "Oh my God, look at this kid go." He was scary, like really scary rider. And it looked like that he was going to always fall off. But again, you could tell instantly that if we could just calm him down a bit, then, the potential there will be that he could go, a long way in the sport, if not all the way. And again, that's proven. To be honest, Ian, I could probably tell many stories about the boys of today, like going back to Tom and Drew. You will see these boys, and they're like, there is something special about them, that they have this natural ability. And obviously Dan as well, Dan Bewley, although Dan never rode in the Youth Championship, the first time that he rode Speedway, you can just tell that they have this natural balance on a Speedway bike, which isn't easy to ride. And those are the special ones, definitely.
There's the natural ability on the bike, and that's one thing, but that's just part of it, isn't it? There's this dedication required in Speedway to make it to the very top, this sort of single-mindedness, really, and determination to really make it. which I hope that we've showcased a little bit in the previous episodes with the likes of Tom Brennan and Jordan Palin and Jordan Jenkins, how committed they are to the sport of Speedway. And in every case, that is the support of their family. Their family are the ones keeping them grounded. The family are the ones keeping them in check, getting them to meetings, supporting them financially, helping get sponsors, whatever it is, driving them on. And the support of the family with that dedication is one of the other keys to success, isn't it?
Any of these kids couldn't make it ultimately, without the support of their family and parents. In my role, I do try and thank them as much as the riders for all their efforts, all the time, to be truthful, because during this time of their apprenticeship, there's very little money to be made in the sport, particularly when they are doing international events. The amount of time and effort that these guys put in and spend is just unbelievable. But ultimately, again, going back to that ultimate goal of being a top spear rider. So without that support, we probably wouldn't have half the boys there now that we fortunately have got. Again, going back to the Palins, another great story was during 2020, the sort of lockdown year. There was still a couple of FIM events going on, and we was trying to get the boys out to Europe as much as we possibly could, particularly in that year when there was very little Speedway going on in the UK. And there was a FIM European Under-19 qualifier in Pas de Bis in the Czech Republic. We had 4 places, and I was pushing the FIM for, if anybody drops out, let us know. I've got riders that are keen to come and compete. And it almost backfired on me, to be honest with you, because the actual qualifier was on a Friday, strangely enough. It was on a Friday afternoon. And I got an email on the Wednesday morning to say, I believe it was a Estonian rider pulled out the event. Would there be any way of sending another rider to Pas de Bis to compete on Friday? So this is like mid-morning Wednesday, and I think, oh my God. Anyway, I was just like drafting the email back to say, look, there isn't any chance, it's too short a notice. And then I thought, well, I better just run it past the Palins. So I actually phoned Jordan's mum at like mid-morning Wednesday. I said, and she had to phone me back because she was actually at work. So she had phoned me back and said, listen, Becky, I said, I know the answer is going to be no, but I just had to ask you anyway. Is there any chance of getting Jordan to Pas de Bis tomorrow night so he's ready to race on Friday? And then Becky said, never say never, Neil. She said, give me an hour and I'll get back to you. And sure enough, from that like Wednesday mid-morning, the Palins had all organised everything, actually left their home in Yorkshire that night and arrived in Pas de Bis like basically sort of 24 hours later to compete in the European qualifier on the Friday afternoon. And again, that's the sort of dedication that we're talking about. And for basically no financial reward, they've obviously driven there. I think it's 16 hours from Calais. It probably takes them 5 hours to get to Dover, obviously the crossing. And Jordan arrived and actually qualified for the European Under-19 final on that Friday afternoon. And as a 16-year-old, and yet 48 hours before wasn't even in the event. And to be honest, through Jordan competing in that qualifier, actually got him selected to ride for us in the Under-21 team final, which was about 3 weeks later, and we ended up getting a bronze medal in Denmark, and Jordan was part of that team. So to take these opportunities, it just snowballs and gives you other opportunities. And like not only Jordan, like I know Drew had the same scenario last year. Again, I think it was the sort of same sort of time to get ready. I think Drew actually competed in the Under-21 final again at Pas de Bis, strangely enough. on this Friday evening, and again the email came through. It might have been the Tuesday. No. Again, it was the Wednesday morning, because Drew was actually riding at Birmingham that night for Edinburgh. And again, I phoned Drew. I said, Drew, we've just had an email to say that you're in the World Under-21 final on Friday in Pile of Beast. Can you do it? And again, he took the opportunity, went to Birmingham that night, straight afterwards, went home, washed his bike, and then drove straight to Pile of Beast. So this is perhaps, things that people don't see or don't appreciate, the effort that not only the riders but the families put in as well, and it's great. For me, that's all part of it, and that's why I absolutely love doing the job.
And that's a great example, though, of what I'm talking about there, with the family rallying round. Everybody is mucking in, doing something, or driving a van, or organising logistics, or whatever it is. It's a team within a team. And obviously the Palins talked about that in their episode, that they are a team themselves in the operation, and perfect example there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it's either dads or granddads that are driving the van. Like a chance out. Like most of these guys can't even drive themselves, so, as we say, they are relying on, dads or granddads or mums and, to drive them all that way. And the particular story with Jordan Palin is that his granddad drove the whole way. And I remember seeing him that evening. We was actually sat in the hotel waiting for him to arrive. His poor old granddad looked wiped out. But bless him, he would have done it the next day. If we asked him to do it the next day, he would have done it the next day. And it's a dedication from the whole families, not just the riders. It's brilliant. I love it.
And it's not just the riders' families, it's a family business for you as well, because alongside your wife, Jackie, who also helps you with the GB Youth setup, you must have a huge sense of pride in seeing these kids that you first meet as youngsters, 8, 9, 10 years old, to seeing them like last year at the Speedway of Nations on the top step with gold medals round their necks at the very pinnacle of World Team Speedway. Must huge moment of pride for you personally to see that development come to fruition.
I'm sure that the boys would have witnessed this on a number of occasions. Like, I'm a bit of a big softie, like I'm very emotional. I'll probably cry too much, to be honest with you, or have a tear in my eye, to be honest. We was fortunate enough to pretty much travel around Europe with Robert. It was probably about 3 years ago when Robert entered the European Under-21 Championship, FIM European Under-21s and European Under-19s, and actually won both competitions in the same season. We was out there with him in, as I say, the World Team Cups, not to have won a medal for 11 years, and now we won a medal back-to-back for 4 years. In 2019, we won the silver medal at Bellevue, again behind a massively strong Polish team. And even watching Robert win the European Championship, sat here on my sofa, it pulls on the old heartstrings and sort of puts a tear in your eye. And I've had many proud moments. And if it all ended for me tomorrow, no one can take away that all those years of hard work and helping the boys. And don't get me wrong, it's certainly not everything that I've done, but just to be a small part of it, and to try and give those riders the opportunities, it means a lot to me. And hopefully Britain are on the up for a long time to come, and ultimately we can rule the Speedway world for many years going forward, hopefully, with this young breed of riders.
One of the questions that we get asked, though, is what's next from British Speedway's youth system? We know about the riders that have emerged from it: Tom Brennan, Jordan Palin, Robert Lambert, and to some extent, of course, Dan Bewley as well. We know about those riders and we can see where they're heading. Who's coming next? Who are the names that we should be looking out for in the next generation behind them that hopefully are going to continue the success that they're beginning to have now and hopefully will continue to have over the coming years?
Yeah, there's, without trying to leave anyone out, I don't really like sort of naming names, but Max Perry, who will be riding National League next season for Leicester, without doubt is going to be a big star of the future. He actually won the World Championship in the World Long Track 125s 2 or 3 years ago. We've got a great crop of 250 riders for the last couple of seasons and this season. We've got Ace Piper, the son of Theo, who's representing Great Britain. We've got Luke Harrison, we've got Max James, and then you go to the sort of younger ages of William Carnes. We've actually got 8 250 riders in the class this year that all 8 of those guys, providing they keep working hard, keeping their feet on the ground, doing the right things. Again, those 8 guys, there's no reason why they couldn't be the next, Tom Brennan, Drew Kemps, Leon Flints, Anders Rowe, and then after that, you just keep working with the 125 guys. Again, I think we've got 18 signed up this season, and you just keep working with the guys, and then all of a sudden you can see things click, and they, something happens for them, for them to think, well, actually, things are working good for me, and we can be like, Luke Harrison or Ace Piper, and then the next level of Max Perry, Sam McGurk. I could name many riders that are perhaps not on everyone's lips at this time, but potentially could be competing to be part of this under 21 group in the next 4 or 5 years, and then ultimately take it on from there.
And it must be great for these guys to see the full path as well, because they can look at Robert Lambert and think, he was here 5 or 10 years ago. He was riding the 250s and then the 500s in this team with Neil Vatcher. And look where he is now in the Grand Prix series, and looks to be looking to kick on seriously in this year ahead. And it'd be great to get to a position where we have 4 or 5 British riders in the Grand Prix series. Why not? If we could reach that level, and the talent surely looks like it's coming through to at least in theory achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely is. I think, again, I think this season's going to be really exciting on the Grand Prix level. I think Robert will go to the next level this year, definitely. Obviously, we all know about Ty's levels are going to be top draw, of course. Dan's second reserve for the GP series this year, so there's a good chance that he will get some experience there. Like Dan, for sure at league level will kick on, and I'm sure if he doesn't qualify outright, there will be a good chance of him getting a selection in 2023. And then, speaking with Tom and Drew and like the current crop of the under 21 riders, I know that is their goal now. To kick on. Those guys like Tom in particular has only one more season left at under 21 level, and then from there it's his time to kick on to compete in GP qualifiers and the Speedway European Championship and that. So you're talking about real young guys here that I personally feel riders don't really peak now until they're late 20s or even 30 years old. So we've still got a lot of work with these guys for possibly the next 8, 9, 10 years before they even reach their peak. And we can see that they are competing at the highest level of league Speedway now, by riding in the top league of British Speedway. And I think this year, with that standard probably going a bit higher again, with like Jason Doyle coming back, Kilderman, Max Frick, and for our boys to be riding against those, can only help them and push them on to achieve that goal of the next level. And I know that we have a lot of negative regards to Speedway over here, but for me personally, I think it's a massive positive, and for me the future looks really bright for British Speedway, not only in the UK but sort of internationally as well.
And a big one for you this year ahead, because obviously your involvement in the under-21s. The under-21 World Championship is going to be decided as part of this new SGP2 series, which is being run by Discovery as they're now taking over running the Grand Prix series. And so that's going to happen at a few of the GP locations, not least at Cardiff on the Sunday, the day after the main event. The under-21s are going to be going at it. And this must be hugely exciting for you as an under-21 boss to see that this opportunity be presented to the riders to race on this stage and potentially in front of massive crowds.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what they've done now with the World Under-21s, which 3 of the rounds are being sort of side by side with the Grand Prix. Again, it will give those young guys the taste of what they could be potentially definitely aiming for, but potentially riding in a couple of years' time. And hopefully the public come out and support the under-21s. Sort of traditionally, sort of crowd-wise, it's not normally supported that well, to be honest. But hopefully, because it's on the back of the GP weekends, people will make it like a sort of tie over with a GP weekend, and potentially for us to have representatives in Cardiff, so like a home World Under-21 in front of a good crowd at a fantastic stadium. When you were talking about there, Ian, it sort of sent a shiver up my spine then. So to be in Cardiff, and there's also one in Torun and also one in Prague as well. So for the guys that are selected, like we only have 4 spots in the qualifiers, so it's going to be a tough pick for the 4 that's chosen. But if ultimately all 4 of those guys can qualify for the World Finals, then it's going to be a big season ahead for them.
Just a final question in this section, Neil, and really to put your careers advisor hat on, but a lot of people who take up Speedway have got a connection with the sport in some way. A family member is involved in Speedway or grass track in some form, or knows someone, and that's usually how it starts. For someone who might be listening to this, who say they've got a child who fancies giving it a go, or they themselves fancy giving it a go, how do you get involved in Speedway? How can you become a Speedway rider if you haven't got that that link into the inner circle of Speedway and that knowledge that you need? How do you get going?
If I'm being honest, that's probably something that we need to work on ourselves. I know that there is, across the whole world of Speedway, there's probably a lack of riders coming through from every nation. So really the answer to that question is probably not an easy thing to get into unless you do have that Speedway background. And I hold my hands up and say, definitely that's something that we probably need to work on to try and encourage younger guys to come in. I know Northside in Workington is hopefully going to be opening soon, and we've been speaking about like Cumbria being like a big motocross county. That is perhaps a venue that we can try and push the sort of motocross guys to come and have a go at Speedway at Northside. And like the discussions have taken place, but in fairness, that is probably something that we are a bit weak on, trying to introduce other motorcyclist enthusiasts into Speedway, because it's not really like an easy thing to get into unless you're already in the know. A Speedway bike is so different to any other discipline, and it's obviously unique, and specialist. But like there are opportunities, as I say. Like Scunthorpe, always run training sessions, as we always know, and there are bikes available there for hire, and they've got the mini track there, of course. So there are opportunities, but as I say, I must admit that is perhaps something that we all should work harder and try to encourage, perhaps motocross boys to come to Speedway.
And I guess another way as well, Ride and Skid It, which are based at Buxton Speedway as well. We did an episode with Aidan Collins, who's the son of Les Collins, one of the greats of British Speedway, and the Collins family itself needs no introduction, and you can listen back to that to find out about their training sessions as well, if you like to. But that's another way that you could probably get some experience. My guest in this episode is Neil Vatcher, and he's had a long career in British Speedway. Now, one of his main roles is nurturing the talent of tomorrow. But what about his career and his early footsteps into the sports? Well, we'll find out more about Neil's career and his dream team as well, all to come next on Humans of Speedway. You're listening to Humans of Speedway. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you hit follow, like, subscribe, whatever it is, on whatever app you choose to listen to us on. Make sure you do that, because then you won't miss any new episodes as soon as they arrive. This time, we're chatting with Neil Vatcher, who we've just heard in the first part about the work he's done with Britain's youth over the last decade or more. But right now, we're going to talk more about your Speedway background, because we said right at the start you spent a lifetime in Speedway. What was your first introduction to the sport?
Yeah, well, my parents have sort of lifetime, pretty much like probably all of us. My parents are lifetime Speedway fans. They actually come from Poole. I was taken to Speedway apparently when I was like 18 months old, and have been going ever since, really. As a kid growing up, I was a massive Poole Pirates fan. I hasten to add that I am neutral these days. But my parents still go. They're sort of involved in the supporters club at Poole. That there are season ticket holders every season now. Well, have been for many years. And as a kid growing up, again, the same as most sort of Speedway fans as a young kids, it was my ultimate dream to be a Speedway rider. I can remember going to school that I wasn't really interested in school, to be honest. I just wanted to be a Speedway rider as soon as I possibly could. I was fortunate enough to have a go myself when I was sort of 15, 16. I had my own equipment. I used to go to the old Reading training track every weekend, or there was a training track in Milton Keynes called Elfield Park. I used to go there all the time, and I used to go to Iwade, which to be honest, sort of back in the day, was a fair old jaunt for me. Like, it would have been sort of like a 3 or 4 hour journey each time, but that was like the nearest training tracks, sort of during that period. So I used to go there every weekend, and actually got to, I didn't get to a very good level. I got to like a second half level. I used to second half at Reading during I think it was the 89 season. And then sort of got to a level where I needed to sort of invest in better equipment. And at the time, couldn't really afford to do that. But because I had my own equipment, obviously I knew my way around the bike. And it was during the 1990 season. As I say, I used to be a fan of Poole, and we used to travel home and away. And we actually went on Northern Tour. I think it was towards the sort of back end of the season. And we went on Northern Tour and was in Scotland and was at Edinburgh. And Alan Rossiter was riding for Poole that season. And then Roscoe didn't have anyone helping him in the pits that night, and he just asked me whether I could just sort of give him a hand just to put the sort of fuel in and spray his chain and stuff. So I went and helped Roscoe at Edinburgh, and then really it sort of, like, I never looked back from there. I ended up helping Roscoe in the pits for the rest of that 1990 season. And then in 91 and 92, I actually mechanicked for another Poole rider, Tom Knudsen. So I ended up mechanicking for Tom for 2 seasons. And then in the 93 season, Tom had decided that he wasn't coming back. So I thought that was the end of my sort of mechanicking days. And Craig Boyce came over from Australia at the start of the 93 season and got in touch with me and said to me, "Oh Neil, I just need someone to mechanic for me for the first 6 weeks of the season." He said, "I've got my brother coming over in May, but I just need a hand for the first 6 weeks." And to be honest, like Craig was at the start of a big career then, and I was sort of privileged to be asked by him to sort of help him. And so of course I snapped his hand off. I worked for Craig for the first what I thought was the first 6 weeks of the season, and to be honest, I never looked back and ended up working for Craig Boyce as his mechanic for almost 20 years from that point. And even when his brother came over, I still carried on working for Craig. So I worked for Boise as his spanner man for like 20 years. And then Craig retired. Might have been 2007, I think Craig retired. I actually had the season out of the sport myself. Basically didn't go for a whole year. To be truthful, sort of got my hunger back. And then in 2009, Craig was actually the Australian team manager during that period for both the seniors and the under-21s. And we actually travelled abroad with Craig with the two teams, and I sort of got a bit of a taste of the team management role with him. And at the start of the 2009 season, Matt Ford decided to enter a team into the National League called the Bournemouth Buccaneers. And I thought, I fancy a bit of this like team management role. So I contacted Matt, asked him whether I could be involved. And again, fortunately, Matt got us involved down at Poole for the Bournemouth Buccaneers. And I shared the team manager's role with Gary May for the 2009 and 2010 season with the Buccaneers. And in 2009, we had a fantastic year. We basically did like a clean sweep of the league and the cup, had a great team. And it's sort of funny how these things snowball, isn't it? And obviously there were some young guys in the team with like Jaron Hart and Carl Newman. And I went to a couple of under-21 events with them. And Graham Reeve was the Great Britain under-21 team manager for the 2009 season. And he said to me that he was finishing at the end of that season. So again, approached him about the possibility of getting involved with the Great Britain squad. And again, fortunate enough to be asked by Graham at the end of that 2009 season to take on the role with Phil Morris initially. And from 2010, I've been in charge with the under-21s, and here we are, 13 years later, still doing it. And as I say, I've been very fortunate to be involved in this sport for so long, and still love every minute of it. Like I still feel like a teenager myself. I still get excited by things that probably a 54-year-old man wouldn't normally get excited at. But absolutely love the sport, and to be involved with the young guys, it keeps me young. So very privileged.
And as we were talking about before, the importance of family for the riders and the young lads coming through, but also for you as well. We mentioned previously, we just talk about it a little more, that your wife Jackie is also a key part of the GB Youth setup, and that she helps look after them and keep the operation running smoothly as well.
Absolutely, I couldn't do it without her for sure. She supports me in every way. As we touched on earlier, it basically takes over your life. Absolutely takes over your life. And obviously during the season, we are away most weekends, whether that's to Redcar or Glasgow or Scunthorpe, or fortunate enough to go abroad with the boys. And Jackie comes with me all the time. She's fully supportive of it. She's as passionate about the British spirit as I am. And, to be honest, she probably knows more of the rules than I do as well. So she's very switched on, and I couldn't do it without her. She's great support to me.
That's fantastic. And your involvement in the day-to-day running of Speedway is huge as well. And, your role is not just limited to looking after the stars of tomorrow and bringing the youth through. You're the SCB coordinator, Speedway Control Bureau, and among your roles are looking after all of the referees. You're also in charge of the rule book, effectively as well, which is going to be interesting soon when I ask you that question. But just explain to us what the SCB does, because I think many fans will just put everything at the door of the BSPL, but the SCB actually is the organisation that looks after the rules and all of that side of it, isn't it? So just explain a little bit more about what the SCB does.
Right, okay, so the SCB is the Speedway Control Bureau, of course. We are the governing body of British Speedway. Above the Speedway Control Board is the ACU, which is the Auto Cycle Union, which the SCB is like part of the ACU. So, we are the governing body of British Speedway. The actual bureau members, there's actually 4 members, sort of 4 voting members. We have a chairman. And on the administrator, my actual role is the coordinator. I'm actually head of the British referees. I'm in charge of the regulations. So again, at this time of year, it's sort of my role to update the regulations that have been proposed by the members of the BSPL. And it's up to the Control Bureau members to accept any proposed regulations that are put forward, which in most cases we do work together. If for some reason, like a regulation was put forward that was perhaps not in the best interest of the sport, shall we say, the Speedway Control Bureau can refuse to accept any new regulations, but we do try and work together with the BSPL. It doesn't always work like that, but ultimately the Speedway Control Bureau is the governing body, and we do oversee the whole of British Speedway.
Wow, so plenty on your plate then. It's all covered. You're a busy man. Tell us about referees and becoming a referee, because we spoke to Paul Ackroyd recently, and of course he was a referee. His son is a referee in British Speedway. We spoke to Chris Durno recently as well, and who all explained some of the process behind becoming a referee. It's not a straightforward process, but recruitment has been ongoing this year. What is the process involved in becoming a referee?
Yeah, to be honest, I came into that role at the back of 2016. So I've been doing this for sort of 4 years now, with the Control Bureau. Again, when I came in, I was keen to bring on some new younger referees. Well, to be honest, all officials in Speedway, I'm sort of keen to try and involve younger guys. So, to be honest, if anyone's listening to this podcast and wants to sort of be involved with their club as an official, then certainly keen to try and get some younger people involved, because with Speedway it just tends to work out that most of the officials and referees tend to be the older generation. So since I came in 2016, we have taken on trainees every 2 years. It's quite strange really, because every second year when we've done the interviews for the referees, the sort of selling point to the potential trainees is that yes, it is a tough role. It isn't a case of just turning up, pressing buttons for 15 heats. There's an awful lot of work to be done before your event and afterwards, paperwork wise, to check riders' licenses, to make sure that everything's in place for the event to run smoothly. Ultimately, the referee is the main man that's in charge of that particular event. So they have to make sure that everything is running smoothly, everything is how it should be, the track's in the right condition, the air fence is correctly pumped up. It doesn't have any holes in it. The safety of the track is good to go. And as I was saying, like these people have turned up at the potential training referees, and like the first sort of selling point that we say to them is that once you're qualified as a referee and you walk into the stadium, nobody really wants you there. Nobody likes you. Chances are, like, no one's going to speak to you nicely. And afterwards, if there's some controversial decision during that meeting, then you almost have to sneak out the back door because people want to lynch you. Are you sure that you still want to become a referee? And again, Ian, I think without referees, obviously we couldn't run, and perhaps they don't get the thanks that we should give them, because it's a job that people don't probably appreciate as much as they should. The amount of effort and work that goes into it. As I say, they are spending probably the day before each event checking that the license is in place, the correct certificates, everything's up to date, and before they even think about sort of travelling to that venue. So, and then afterwards they have meeting reports to write, and then, as I say, to do one event, say like tomorrow night, it probably takes them 3 days, like a day either side to do all their documentation. So, and it's not anything that the public see to appreciate. So, it's a tough role to have, and perhaps we should appreciate it more for sure.
That's Neil Vatcher on Humans of Speedway, my guest in this episode. You probably will be aware of his work with the GB Young Lions, but also there talking about his role with the SCB. And one of his roles there is to oversee the referees, and another one is to oversee the rule book. So coming next, we're going to talk about Neil Vatcher's dream Speedway meeting, and a couple of the questions will be who's going to referee it and which rule would he change. This could be interesting. We'll find out what he has to say in just a couple of moments here on Humans of Speedway. You're listening to Humans of Speedway, part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. My guest in this episode is Neil Vatcher, who is a man who, in no small part, has shaped the future of British Speedway with his work through the GB Young Lions, looking after the British Championship and nurturing these young kids to now be, in the case of Dan Bewley, Robert Lambert and Tom Brennan, to be world champions at the Speedway of Nations, and they all came through the British youth system. In this section, though, we're going to talk about Neil Vatcher's dream Speedway meeting. He's had many roles and much experience in a lifetime of Speedway, really. So, Neil, my first question for you is, if you're going to have your dream meeting, your dream testimonial, if you'd like to call it that, which track would you choose purely for the racing? Just for the shape and the shale and the excitement for the riders?
To be honest, Ian, like when you contacted me a couple of days ago and asked me, a few of the questions that you was going to ask, I was like, oh my God, how do I answer these? And I think in the next few minutes there's going to be some tough questions for me. But after having a sleepless night thinking about it, I have actually made some notes myself. I think track-wise, to be honest, and I think it would be hard to beat the new Bellevue now. Fortunate enough to have been there on quite a few occasions. Absolutely love going to the place. There's so many different racing lines. I've been to many tracks across the world, and I can't honestly think racing-wise anything probably beats the new Bellevue. So, if I could take that track everywhere that I go, then I would say the new Bellevue track is definitely the best racing track that I've been to there are many great venues that I've been to, of course there is, but I think it would have to be pretty special to beat the new Bellevue track for sure. Okay,
and so if we're going to put the Bellevue track into the perfect stadium environment, which stadium would you put the Bellevue track in?
Well, again, probably showing me age here, but I was fortunate enough to go to the old Wembley for 2 World Finals. to have the privilege of going, to a sold out Wembley Stadium. I was actually there in 1978 and 81. That's probably one of my earliest childhood memories, I'd say, probably 78. I remember going up on the coach, and the coach park was packed with Speedway fans, and having to queue up afterwards, to get out, wait hours for your coach to get out, and to be privileged enough to be, to have seen Speedway at the old Wembley Stadium again. I think it would have to be pretty special to beat the atmosphere of a sold out Wembley Stadium. So, the thought of the new Bellevue track to be inside the old Wembley Stadium, that certainly sends a sort of shiver down your spine, definitely.
And we get very excited, rightly, about Speedway Grand Prix at Cardiff and what a big event it is. But the Wembley events for Speedway at that era were just on a different level even to that, weren't they? 90,000 people crammed in Wembley Stadium, the National Stadium. What a fantastic event that must have been to be part of.
Yeah, it's a bit heartbreaking, really, isn't it? I'm sure a lot of us, watch old clips, and even some of the sort of clips, they're actually not that many years ago when you see packed stadiums and but again, I'm sure everyone has the same experiences. You just speak to people, up the shop or in the street, and in my experience, almost everyone says, I used to go to Speedway, and sort of back in the day, that's what people did, isn't it? I think perhaps now there's too much choice, or with the sports channels on TV, it's sort of too easy to stay at home and watch sport on TV. But as you quite rightly said, Ian, it would probably never happen again. But to have those old days back with packed stadiums, wouldn't that be fantastic? And we can only do what we can do. But to be doing probably podcasts like you're doing, and sort of trying to sell the sport, and having a good British youth system, and having good race tracks, being world champions at the Speedway of Nations, I think we're doing as much as we possibly can, and hopefully the good times all round will come back in the not too distant future, for clubs to be profitable, and good crowds and good racing and good British riders would be the ultimate dream, of course.
Well, you're certainly doing what you can on that front. Right now, let's talk about your dream 1 to 7, Neil. Obviously, you've got a lot of experience in Speedway, and I'm sure a lot of contacts as well. So hopefully, it won't put too many noses out of joint. But who would be in your all-time 1 to 7, Neil?
Well, this is the thing. I do have so many friends in Speedway, and I wouldn't want to miss anyone out. I could probably list 100 riders, to be truthful, but I have written 7 down. It's a mix of the older generation. I've got a couple of the current boys in there as well. Without doubt, I would have to put Craig Boyce as my number 1. Obviously, Boyce was my best mate. We was like brothers. He was my best man at my wedding. Worked with him for many years. We had so many laughs and so many stories to tell that I probably couldn't tell on this podcast. But we had such a good time together, and one of my all-time mates without a shadow of a doubt.
If there was a story that you could tell, though, what would be one of your favourite memories with Craig Boyce, the 20 or so years on the road? Well,
obviously the special moment was, without doubt, was the 1994 World Final at Vines. To even qualify for that at that time, Craig was on the up. I remember that he did the semi-final at Bradford and just about scraped through the qualifiers. 8 qualified, as I recall, and he just about scraped through 7th or 8th. He was one of the last qualifiers, and was absolutely delirious that he was just in a world final. And we had travelled to Denmark, similar to what we said before. I remember that we rode at Poole on a Wednesday night, left straight afterwards. We had a small, a short-wheeled transit van that season, and we were all crammed in the transit van. we drove overnight to Vines. Had a lovely couple of days there. We actually stayed with Tom Knudsen and his wife Amanda. And just to be part of that last World Final was a special occasion, and sort of never really expected too much. The top 10 riders qualified for the next season's Grand Prix, so that was the goal really, was to come in the top 10. But it ended up Craig having a run-off to win the world title with Tony Rickards and Hans Nielsen. And even though he ended up coming third, without doubt, that's a memory that will live with me for the rest of my days. And to be involved in a run-off in his first world final, to become world champion was like, we didn't even discuss that. We didn't even think that would ever happen. And because it did, I think, as I say, that's just a memory that will always live with us. Like me and Jackie, I was fortunate enough. Jackie was there as well, and we shed many tears that night, and we probably had sort of too much to drink afterwards. But it was a special occasion and one that will always live with us.
Yeah, quite rightly so as well. So Craig Boyce, then, you're number one in your dream team. Who's next?
My next two is probably two riders that Crawley got their career short. I went with Darcy Ward at number two. I saw Darcy, obviously being involved with Craig when Darcy first came over. Again, I was fortunate enough to sort of travel with the Australian team initially, and Darcy, what a talent he was! Absolute natural ability. Like we talked about riders with natural ability earlier. Darcy could ride any track. His mindset was the ultimate professional. I can remember once, again, sort of away from the track, we were sat in a hotel room, and it was for the under-21 team, for the Australian team. And Darcy was there. Darcy would have been like 16, 17 years old. And Darcy was actually in the Czech Republic, I recall, and we was in the reception, and this probably sounds a bit strange, but the rest of the Australian boys turned up, but it was Darcy as like a 17-year-old that was organising them for the hotel rooms, telling them, what time breakfast would be, what time practice would be, where we had to be at certain times in certain places. And I can remember sitting back thinking, oh my God, mate, you've got such an old head on young shoulders. And like the talent on the bike, everyone knows how good he was. It doesn't matter whether it was on the inside, on the outside, whether the track was slick, if it was grippy. Darcy for sure would have been multiple world champions if he hadn't been Crawley sort of cut short of his career. So Darcy had to be in my dream team for sure. Brilliant. The other one is Eric Gunderson. Again, sort of when I was a fan, Eric was obviously riding in the UK for Crowdley. Again, you talk about multiple world champions. Eric, individually, team, pairs, has won it all. And such a small person in size. Again, equipment was always at another level. And Eric's, the ultimate professional. And if there's any sort of older riders that these young boys need to look up to, like watch videos of, his style was brilliant. His world long track champion, could do it all. And again, his career was Crawley cut short. And I'm sure Eric would have gone on to win many more world titles if that hadn't been the case as well.
He was an incredible rider, and I was lucky enough to see him at Bradford, and it's a distant memory, but the 1985 World Final, obviously I've had my memory refreshed by seeing it on YouTube and so on, but some of the moves, and that big move he did where he came from, was it last to first, to keep himself in with that chance of winning the world title at Bradford. Just phenomenal kind of bravery and skill at the same time. Ridiculous. So that's three. Who's at number four now, Neil?
Me, number four is someone that I worked with when I was fortunate enough to be team manager at Lakeside. I didn't really know him that well until he came in 2012 is Peter Carlson, PK. Wow, what a ultimate professional PK was. As I say, I didn't really know him that well before that season. I remember speaking with John Cook during the winter about building the Lakeside team before that year, and we'd heard that PK would be available. For some reason, Wolverhampton couldn't fit him in that season. To be honest, never really expected that he would come and ride for Lakeside. And when he did, what a dream guy PK is. You couldn't wish to meet a nicer guy. Again, seemed to get better every season. Like, he actually came to Lakeside the following year as well. And I remember thinking, well, surely he can't be as good as he was last year. And he was actually even better. Again, the ultimate professional, and just seemed to get better with age. And PK, and the nicest guy as well. Absolutely lovely guy. If you ask him to go out in any race, in any position, off any gate, never ever asked any questions. And again, the nicest guy and the ultimate professional. So, and just seemed to get better with age, and he could probably still do a job for someone now, I reckon. And just a great person. So yeah, PK had to be part of my 1 to 7 for sure.
Okay, so Peter Carlson. I think we need a bit of controversy, Neil. Who's going to go at number 5?
My number 5 will be Michael Lee. As I sort of touched on earlier, sort of grew up as a Paul Pirate fan, and Michael came and rode for Paul for a couple of seasons. So again, was sort of fortunate enough to travel the length of the breadth of the country to support Michael and the Paul team at the time. We actually went to Northern for the World Final when Michael came third. That's a pretty special occasion as a sort of childhood memory. Again, perhaps should have won more world titles than what he did. I believe that he actually won the world title when he was 21, which is sort of pretty amazing now when you think the sort of levels that we think that our 21-year-old riders are at now. We think that they're at a high level, but Michael actually won the world title at that age. So incredible, really. And again, perhaps didn't take the right roads when he could have done, and should have won more world titles. But for me, absolute natural talent, and in another world, if you could work with Michael at a younger age and sort of put him on the right path, could have had so much more success in the sport.
And that's sort of back to what we were saying at the start, isn't it, Neil? And the work you're doing in the GB Young Lions, and about when I was saying about keeping the guys grounded. There's many distractions, especially if you're a young 18, 19-year-old. Your mates are off out doing this, that and the other, and you've got to remain this consummate professional for a number of years to get the most out of your career.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's sort of good for the boys there now that there's, I'm presuming that there's more support here now for those guys, than there was back in the sort of 80s, if riders do have any issues now, there are people to turn to, whereas perhaps in Michael's day that there wouldn't have been. So, but yeah, as a 21-year-old to be world champion, that's something special, isn't it, for sure.
It certainly is, and imagine if that happened now, what a huge story that would possibly be, a world champion at 21. So your team's taking shape. I think you've got 2 spots left in it, Neil.
Right, so for the last 2 places, I'm going to pick out sort of two of me mates. Like I've actually mentioned them both before. I'm going to pick out Robert Lambert for one. As I said earlier, when Robert was at the under-21 levels, we was fortunate enough to sort of travel around Europe with him, seen him win the European under-21s, seen him get 2 bronze medals in the world under-21s, which were special occasions. And I'm still in touch with him now on sort of quite a regular basis. I believe this coming season, Robert will step it up another level in the Grand Prix. Hoping that he can automatically qualify continuously for the next 10, 12 years even. And I think Robert, does have a massive chance of becoming world champion in the next 3 or 4 years for sure. And anything that Robert wants from me, I would always be there to give him my support for sure. And as I say before, I sort of feel privileged to know him, feel very privileged to have worked with him, and hopefully just a very small piece of what we've done together has helped him onto the right track where he is at today. And I'm definitely excited to see where it can take him.
But it wasn't long ago, we're only talking a few years ago, that Robert was riding as part of the GB Young Lions, the British youth system, the under-21s and all the rest of it. And already we can see where he's at. He's had the success in the European Championship, and now a regular rider in the Grand Prix series, and seriously putting the work in to take himself to that next level within that elite group, to be in the top 8 of the GPs or higher regularly. It's an amazing transformation before our eyes here, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think the sort of the tick in the box for Robert is that he did his apprenticeship, and he wanted to do all the under 21 events. He wanted to win them all. I remember an occasion in the season that he won the European under 19 championship. Leading up to that event, Great Britain had 2 places, and it's like an FIM Europe event. And I actually spoke with Robert. I said, Rob, we've got 2 places for the European under 19s, but it's in the Czech Republic. You've got to drive to the Czech Republic. He just wanted to do his apprenticeship. He wanted those young titles, and now he's getting his rewards. And Robert went to the Czech Republic against Bartosz Smetala and all these tough young under 19s at the time. It was at a track called Divisov, which is quite a hard track to ride, shall we say. But it didn't faze him. He wanted to do his apprenticeship and wanted to win those titles, and I'll give him the full respect for that.
And an exciting year ahead in the GP series, and hopefully Robert can kick on a little further as well. And we could be in a situation where 3 of the guys who are involved in the Speedway of Nations victory could be involved in the GP, because Dan Bewley's second choice reserve in the series at the moment, with Ty Woofenden and Robert Lambert already in there as well. So Neil, your final selection for your dream team then, who's at number 7?
My final one is probably me I'd say probably my best mate in British Speedway currently. Again, we mentioned him earlier, is Adam Ellis. I think with some riders, I think they're a bit of a slow burner. Perhaps someone like Robert, for example, or Dan is sort of burst onto the scene. I think some riders can get to those levels, but takes them longer to get there. I think Adam's one of those. Again, I think the 2021 season, Adam came of age. For the people that watch the British final, Dan was the hot favourite to win that night. Yet Adam almost came under the radar, if you like. And oh my goodness, how fast was Adam that night? And again, I've been fortunate enough to work with Adam in sort of European events before, and when Adam's good, he's good, mate. He is really good. Great style. He can make a start. He has speed. But I think he's just one of those riders that perhaps goes under the radar rather than being like a headline rider. And Adam's still young. Like we touched on earlier, that perhaps you don't peak until you're 30 now. Like Adam's still only 24, 25. He's still getting better every year. And again, I think if Adam keeps working hard, taking the opportunities, there's no reason why Adam can't be that Grand Prix rider along with the likes of Robert and Dan as well in the not too distant future.
And exciting this year as well with the GP Challenge, which is the event that obviously needs to finish in the top three to guarantee that you will go through into the series for next year. But that is being held at Glasgow this year. Tom Brennan, of course, a Glasgow rider. Adam Ellis, lots of experience of racing at Glasgow, in his time through British Speedway. And for any of the riders, really, that have got experience of racing around Glasgow, say Craig Cook or whoever, should they make it to that GP Challenge, that's got to be a massive advantage, hasn't it, this year for these British riders?
I'm sure that every Speedway fan doesn't look at different results, but Adam qualified for the GP Challenge last year. He went to a real tough qualifier in Italy, Terrazzano. It's a track that's it's a completely different surface to what us British riders are used to. He went there and was competing against riders like Patrick Dudek and beat Dudek in a GP qualifier. And I'm sure everyone's excited by the name of Patrick Dudek, which in my opinion we should be excited by the name of Adam Ellis along the similar lines. As I say, he does go under the radar, but multi-talented. And hopefully he keeps working hard, keeps improving, and reaches the very top, which I believe he can.
Now, this next question, Neil, is asking you to choose a referee for your dream meeting.
Yeah.
Now, as the person who is in charge of all the referees...
No, that's fine. Again, when you sent me those questions the other day, I think, oh my goodness, how do I answer that? But to be honest, Ian, it's not quite an easy one, actually. Again, a person that has put me in the position that I am at both under 21 and on the SCB as well is actually Graham Reeve, who's a former SCB referee. As I touched on earlier, it was Graham that allowed me in 2010 to come onto the under 21 team management, and with the SCB. Like the role that I'm taking now was actually Graham's role before. Graham retired in 2016, the back end of 2016. I spoke to him about it early in that year. I thought, I could be interested in that. And we spoke to each other. I believe that he's gave me a favourable sort of CVs. Ahead of the SCB members, and sort of helped me with the transition of his position from stepping down to taking that role on, which in fairness was a bit like a rabbit in headlights. I was a bit, oh my god, this is a pretty big role. So Graham's been very, very, very sort of helpful to me in both the roles that I've currently got in Speedway. So as a former referee, it would have to be Graham, definitely.
Now, the next question I always ask is, which rule would you change in Speedway? Now, I'd overlook the fact that you are actually in charge of updating British Speedway's rule book. So
yeah, that's right. Again, I thought, oh my goodness, how do I answer that without being too controversial? But in practice, this probably isn't really possible. But, like from a fan's point of view, if I was just a fan, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have a points limit? Which enabled, obviously like the top league to have a multiple of world-class riders in their team. So, in like a dream world, like I'm not saying that it's practical or financially possible, but in a dream world, it would be nice to not have a points limit, and then we could get, like have a Smarslick and a Lambert and all these top riders in every team, and how good and exciting would that be for British Speedway? So I would say that, the points limit, get rid of the points limit.
I think the promoters would like the points limit getting rid of. It's the salary that would be the problem, isn't it?
Which is exactly my point. And I totally understand why there is a points limit. And I'm sort of favourable because I certainly wouldn't want any clubs to go out of business. But if we're living in a pretend world with, sort of money not being an option, that would be the one regulation that would be nice to get rid of, yeah.
And the final question then, Neil, is who would be the opposition for your dream team? And now this is made up of an actual team that has existed at some point in history, but which team would you love to see facing up to your All-Stars?
Yeah, right. Blimey. Yeah, this is something else that I was sort of debating over, and I was speaking to Jackie about. So, oh my goodness, how do we do this? And again, sort of going back over what we spoke about earlier, I've been very fortunate, I feel, to work with many teams as sort of mechanic with Boise, and being involved in the, a few pool teams, and when he was at Swindon and Ipswich. My first team manager's role with the Bournemouth Buccaneers in 2009. As I said, we did like a clean sweep of the league and cup that year. To be team manager of a team that was to win those trophies was, at the time, it was dreamland, even though it was only at National League level. And also, I was fortunate enough to be team manager at Lakeside for 5 years, which I was very privileged to have been at the highest level, British Speedway. And again, touch on that Lakeside team with 2012, which had Peter Carlson, Dave Watt and Lee Richardson all in one team was at the time incredible. And I remember, as I said before, speaking with John Cook about selecting that team. If we was to have two of those, PK, Dave Watt or Lee in that team, it would have been a dream. But to have three of them in was unbelievable. And I remember going into that season thinking, this could be the season that Lakeside would to win the Elite League as it was at the time. But obviously, unfortunately, in May, we unfortunately lost Lee in that accident, which was a great tragedy, of course. And even though Lakeside made the playoffs that year, losing Lee earlier in that season, we couldn't quite get over the line. But I would say, after saying that, it's a real difficult choice. But I think I would have to say the pool team of 1994. I think I was mechanicking for Craig Boyce at the time. That it's probably fair to say that was Craig's best year. Got double figures everywhere that he went. Had multiple maximums that season. So for me personally and Craig, it was a fantastic year. But the other six riders, we had some good parties that year and sort of got really friendly with the whole team again were mates of mine. And I just tell you the other six riders, and they're all good friends of mine. And if we was to have like a reunion now, I think it would be a fantastic night. So the pool team of 1994, which was Craig Boyce, Lars Gunnenstad, Steve Schofield, Alan Rossiter, Jorgen Johansson, Jason Crump, and Steve Masters. And I think, like, looking at that team now, even now, it sort of blows me away a bit, to be honest with you. That certainly was a real special team, and some great memories from that year. Some great
strength in depth, and obviously some now household names in that side, even if they weren't at the start of their careers. But some fantastic other names in there as well that you mentioned, such as like Steve Schofield, and he was a great rider. What a blast from the past that is!
Oh, Scoey was. You talk about legends, like Scoey was an absolute legend. Like, again, fantastic guy, great rider. He was absolutely tiny in stature, but what an absolute class motorcyclist Scoey was. He was super fast on the grass as well, and ultimate professional. I know that he used to tell the younger boys off a lot of the times for turning up, perhaps not to the standard that Scoey was at, but a real funny guy as well. As I say, away from the track, perhaps in the change rooms or whatever, would have us all in fits of laughter. And I would class Scoey as a great friend of mine as well. Although, unfortunately, like with many things, you sort of lose touch with these people. But if I was to see him now, it would be a great pleasure to sort of meet up with Scully again. And had many seasons at the top level. Again, perhaps another rider that went under the radar a bit. In the shadow of Gunnestad and Boyce and Crump. But those type of riders that you need in your team to have a real solid look to you.
Poole 1994 team then, your opposition. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Neil, today. Appreciate your time, because I know that, as we've discussed, you're a very busy man. You've got lots on. But I'm sure that people would be fascinated with everything that you've talked about, not least how the youth system works and how bright the future is for British Speedway on that front, with the riders currently in the process of coming through. And let's just hope everybody has a good, safe season as we approach the start of the Speedway season at the time of recording this. I expect, therefore, for you, things are about to get fairly busy as well with you and the meetings you've got planned.
As I say, we're busy planning already, obviously. It's been a busy sort of few weeks, and up leading to the season now, and pretty much sort of flat out every day organising events, both with the SCB. We have seminars, for officials and referees to organise. A lot going on. It's an exciting time. I love this time of year. It's almost like the build up to Christmas. Do you know what I mean? And it's like really exciting, and really looking forward to it. Hopefully, we have some good weather to help all the British clubs, and hopefully we can get some good crowds in, good racing, and keep everyone safe and keep Britain on top of the world.
My thanks to Neil Vatcher for joining us on this episode of Humans of Speedway. I hope that you found that as entertaining as it was useful as well. Interesting to hear what's going on in the youth scene in British Speedway, and how there's no shortage of talent coming through. Now, there's plenty of other episodes for you to listen to on the Humans of Speedway series. Recent episodes that we put out include with Josh Orty, who is the man kicking off the British Speedway season in 2022 with his fixture, the opening fixture, his testimonial on the 19th of March. We also recently spoke with Paul Ackroyd, who is a veteran of refereeing, but also the chairman of the Speedway Riders Benevolent Fund, all about the Ben Fund Bonanza. We also recently spoke with Tom Brennan, of course, as well, with Louis Kerr, who also is staging his testimonial very soon as well, along with Jordan Palin and Jordan Jenkins and Adam Ellis, just a few of the riders who've come through that British Speedway Young Lions system, headed up by Neil Vatcher. So take in those episodes as well to find out more about those respective riders. And we'll be back very soon with another episode of Humans of Speedway. Take care, we'll speak soon.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.